Hey, it's Mike Cambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in the industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by Todd Hutcheson, who's the owner of iBuyHomes.com and a real estate investor that focuses primarily on the Orlando and Greensboro markets, and maybe some more. We'll talk about that. Today, we're going to focus on two general things. The first one is generating leads for your business with direct mail and through the internet, which Todd is an expert at. Now, another thing that we haven't really talked about that I'm excited to talk about is how to position yourself as an expert in your market. So it's going to be an exciting show. Before we get started, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Todd, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on. And before we get started, I wanted to tell everybody that you followed our rules and you wore the glasses today.
Yes, I did.
Prepared for FlipNerd. The Wayfarers are coming back, my friend.
They're good-looking glasses. I get compliments on them.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks again for being here. We've got some really great topics to talk about today, and I'm glad that you're going to share your insights on those. Before we get started, though, can you tell us a little bit about your background in real estate investing and kind of how you got into this, and a little bit of background on your companies?
Okay, great. Well, I'm from Florida, one of the 10 native Floridians, and I was a political consultant for many, many years and sold political direct mail. And I was looking for something to do in between political campaigns, and I had an option to buy a sign shop. And one day this guy came in and said, "You need to come to our real estate meeting. We're the guys who buy all the We Buy Houses signs." I said, "Okay." And I fell in love with it instantly. My mom had done some real estate, maybe one or two a year. And if she'd have had a RIA, if she'd have known about it, she probably would have been filthy rich doing it.
Yeah.
So I joined the RIA, and I bought iBuyHomes.com the next month.
Okay.
It was my first deal. The guy, I bought .com, .net, and .org for $1,500, and he let me put $500 down and $100 a month until I paid it off.
Okay. And what year was that?
That was 2000.
Okay. Back in the early, that was just shortly after Al Gore invented the internet.
Exactly.
Not too long after that.
Not too long at all. And things have changed a lot, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, so I've been up on the internet since 2000, and it's been a fun ride. So I didn't end up buying the sign shop and got into this full time almost from the start.
Okay.
I still do a tiny bit of political consulting, just more because it's in my blood than anything. And I'm a full-time investor since, I guess, 2004.
Yeah. And so since you've been investing for 10, 15 years, in Florida, you've seen some wild rides. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, huh?
It's been crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it was flat when I first started. Then it was a meteoric rise. And, you know, give you an example of the fall we had. I had one house I sold to a guy for $110. He put $30 into it, had an offer for $167. This was in 2008. He turned it down. That house is now worth about $42,000. It's been sitting empty for that entire time. And it goes to show you should, many times, your best offer is your first offer.
Yeah.
You shouldn't try to negotiate too hard as long as you're going to make good money.
Yeah.
I bet he would have loved to have had that person right now.
Yeah, that is incredible.
So things fell pretty dramatically, and then they're screaming right now.
Right.
I mean, Central Florida and Florida in general is very, very hot. Californians are buying, Brazilians, Canadians, and people who just think Florida is still on sale.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some great topics again to talk about today. Why don't we start with talking about some of the lead generation stuff that you're proficient in and that you've agreed to share some of your knowledge in today. And we can, if you want, we'll just maybe talk about direct mail. And the interesting thing is I'm guessing here that some of the benefit you saw as a real estate investor was because you had been doing this in the political space prior to that. Is that right?
Well, I did all the mail for Disney for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So direct mail is, I was on the board of directors for the Direct Marketing Association.
Okay.
It's a big part of my business.
Yeah.
I did political mail, but I did some, nonprofit mail and Disney and Hilton, Grand Vacations. We have a lot of timeshare industry here in our land. So I did a lot of timeshare direct mail.
Yeah.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pieces a week.
Right.
So our little 1,000 pieces, 2,000 pieces seem really small compared to what I was doing.
Yeah.
But
there's definitely some art and some science to direct mail. And I think for a long time, people thought that the art was just volume, just send a bunch. But there's clearly, with so much noise in the world these days, I mean, there's an art to getting something that converts well.
Well, what people don't concentrate on enough in direct mail is the list.
Mm-hmm.
About 50 to 60% of success of a direct mail campaign is the list. About 20 to 30% of the success of a campaign is the offer. And then about 10 to 15% of the success of a campaign is the actual creative, what your letter says and how it looks.
Okay.
So people like to concentrate on the small things that they shouldn't be concentrating on when you should be concentrating on the list.
Yeah. Okay.
The list that I love, the biggest one that I love is evictions. I don't know if you've ever had anybody talk about eviction mailings, but in Florida anyway, it's a legal action. When somebody doesn't pay the rent, they go down and pay $195, and it's in the court records, the owner's name and the address of the house that they're evicting. So you go a daily, weekly basis, get that list, compile it, and mail to them. And I know people that's all they do is that list.
Wow. Okay.
The trick is to try to get it in the mail the very first person, and then probably about 10 days later, at least in our state, we have what's called a writ of possession. Whereas if the tenant doesn't leave, you have to go back to the court and ask for the court to give you permission to throw their stuff out on the steps. Okay. So you want to mail a piece that very first day they file the action, and then follow up. If they haven't, the tenant hasn't left, and they have to ask for that writ of possession. You want a second piece of mail to go out that day as well.
Okay.
That's when the tenant goes with the sheriff and literally can throw it out.
Yeah.
So if you get a mail piece in their hands, in the owner's hands, that next day, they've just walked into a trash house. You're going to get some really, really, really good leads.
Yeah.
That not on the market. Nobody else knows about them.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Right.
It's all about timing.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's your favorite list. Any other any other words of wisdom on direct mail?
My second favorite list is probate. Again, in my opinion, do not start probate mailings. If you do one and then stop mailing, you're most likely going to fail. You have to do it at least. My mom's case, let me give you an example. My mom died, and her probate lasted 2 years before we could sell any of the property.
Wow.
So you have to, at a minimum, every 6 weeks, as long as that probate has started and there's an asset in the probate file for you to mail to, you need to be on a 6-week mailing schedule for them, because you never know when they're going to become motivated.
Yeah.
So you mail to the personal representative. Some states it's called the executor. Here in Florida, it's public record where the personal representative lives, their name, their address, and sometimes their phone number even. So you mail to them every 6 weeks. And it's tricky because you'll get calls, you're an ambulance chaser, but you have to acknowledge the death, and it's usually a loved one. And the case file will show you whether it's a loved one or not in the relationship. And that's important to mark on your file somehow, so that you don't say it's your loved one if it was their accountant, or so you can talk message, the right message to the right list,
Yeah.
if you want to call it that.
Okay.
So Probate is my second favorite. And the reason both of those are really good, in my opinion, is they're not easy to get lists. So not enough people do them because you have to go to the courthouse on a regular basis, if not daily, weekly, to get the most timely information. Because there's people that sell probate information, but in my opinion, when I've tested them out, it's old. It's old data. Whereas if you compile the list yourself at the courthouse, it's fresh and it's accurate.
Yeah. I know in some parts of the country, the data is much easier to get than others. I know in some parts of the Northeast, it's very, very difficult if you're not a family member to get probate. And so I know a little bit about it, and I know that that to be true. It depends on where you are in the country as to how easy it is to get to that data. But
you're right. And then my third favorite, and the one I do the least of, is out-of-town owners.
I see. Okay.
And now I think you've had it on your show before, List Source. You can actually pull the list by whether they have equity or not. So not only just, again, the list is important because we as buyers, why would we mail to somebody that owes more than we could pay?
Right.
So your response rate goes up and your costs go down dramatically if you segregate that list out, not only by out-of-town owners, but secondarily how much equity they have.
Right. Right. Okay.
Have you used List Source before?
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a pretty robust system.
Mm-hmm.
It's owned by a title company, a national title company.
Okay. Okay.
So the data's good.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us a little bit about internet leads. I know obviously you own iBuyHouses.com and iBuyHomes.com, and so you're I know just in some of the conversations we have that you're very confident in your ability to generate leads on the internet. So share some of your kind of tips and tricks in that regard.
Okay. The first thing is if you don't have an internet site yet, and I think this is really, really important, don't go register a domain. Go buy a domain already old that already has links to it. And you can do that at GoDaddy.com and then auctions. They have an auction site, and you can do what's called an advanced search, and you can pull up domains that have expired that are $5 that are 3 years old and already have traffic to them. For instance, there was a great one 3 days ago. It might still be available. WeBuyTXHouses.com. It was 3 years old and was getting 30 hits a month. It's a lot easier to get that site ranked than it is if you buy one that has never had any information on it and hasn't been purchased. So if you don't have a site, don't buy a brand new one. Spend the time, buy one that's already been used. It's a lot easier to get ranked. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, if your name's Jane and you're going to buy JaneBuysHouses.com, don't get that unless you can get the corresponding JaneBuysHomes.com and point one to the other. We had a guy here in town that sent out 20,000 letters a month, and he had a certain domain name, and I told him twice. I said, look, you need to register their domain. The houses versus, he owned the houses, he didn't own the homes. So I told him, look, if you don't register it, I'm going to register it and point it to my domain. And I did. And I used to get 1 to 2 leads a month for an $8 investment. So the trick is if you see somebody in your market that's doing a lot of advertising and they have houses and they don't have homes or vice versa, go register it and point it to your site. Instant traffic.
Yeah.
Instant traffic.
Yeah.
Because people don't do that.
It's funny you say that because in another life, I worked for a fairly successful startup. It was a startup, but they were doing nearly $500 million in sales at the time I was there. So pretty successful. We bought all sorts of domains that they called them fat finger domains. They were, just a variation of other domains that somebody would just mistype, by one word or a common word that would commonly get spelled wrong. And I mean, that was like a strategy of the company, was to buy those domains that were just slightly different than, something that we did want to target. So,
well, for 2 years, I was #1 ranked on Remaz and Remac.
Yeah.
So the Z, the X, and C, and people just typed it in wrong all the time. I was getting about 500 hits a month from those before Google changed the algorithm to correct your searches. Did you mean this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a fun little thing that went away. That got a lot of good traffic.
Yeah.
But the thing that most people do when they're internet sites, and I see so many really, really, really bad websites. They talk about themselves instead of what's in it for the customer.
Right.
Okay. If you don't have your website so it pulls up and instantaneously they can tell what the website's about and what it's in it for them, they're going to bounce and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, it's not I buy homes, we buy houses. It's, no closing costs for you. You pick the closing date. You don't have to paint, clean, or make repairs. What is in it for them, not what's in it for you.
Right.
So many people fail in that aspect. So even if they get somebody to come to their site, they're going to leave because it's not professionally done.
Right.
Number two is, and this is a technical thing, but it's almost impossible to get a site ranked unless you have H1 tags. H1 stands for headline. Think of H1 tag as a headline. And the way you can figure out if you have them, you right click on any white space on your website and hit view source, and then just hit Control F and then type in H1, and it'll tell you what your headline tag is. And many people, it says click here, or the name of their company, Jones Investment Companies. You don't want to rank for Jones Investment Companies. You want to rank for sell my Dallas-Fort Worth home fast for cash.
Yeah.
Okay? So you need whatever words you're trying to rank on to be in your H1 tag. And a really cool thing is the last thing on your page should be an H2 tag with similar words. So if you used sell your home fast in Dallas for your H1, you would want your H2 at the bottom of the page. You want to say sell my home quickly for cash. So semantically, it's the same thing, but not exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
So Google knows that both of these H1 and H2, the H1 and H2 is what tells Google what the page is about and what we should rank it for.
Okay.
Another really, really good trick. This is, I promise you, worth a lot of money, and I've never told it to really anybody, but I'm going to be generous.
Yes, thank you.
You do not have to be ranked in the top 3 for your terms if you do this one thing. If you add your phone number in the first 20 characters of your description, people will call you, because what do people use the internet for? They use it for the yellow pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of old. So if you have your phone number in your description, so when they see those 10 different listings for sell your house in Dallas, and you're the only one that has a phone number in it, you're going to get called, even if you're not ranked number 1 and 2, where most of the traffic is from. So you can be 3, 4, 5 if you have your phone number, and just check it out in your market. Type in We Buy Houses Detroit and see. There's nobody that'll have their phone number in there. I promise you.
Yeah.
And I get a whole lot of business because of that, because nobody else put their phone number, so you don't ever even have to click on it. They can just call without ever having to click. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to answer your phone.
Yeah. And that's an interesting thing is, I know a lot of real estate investors and a lot of people that teach real estate investors to do things, and it's the last thing that they want to do is answer the phone. Send it to voicemail. If they're motivated, they'll leave a message. It's like, I think if they're motivated, they're going to hang up and call the next person until they get somebody that answers the phone. In fact, I do it all the time. I mean, I could give examples of, last year, I used this one before, so I'll say it again, is we made a decision that we're going to have somebody else come hang Christmas lights at our house because I'm not going to do that. And I literally just kept calling people until somebody answered the phone, and it was like the 5th or 6th person. And we roughly agreed on price, and he could come out and do it the next day and all those things. And it was like, I'm done. Like, you're the guy, come do it. And then people started calling back over the next few hours. Well, you just called us 2 hours ago. It's like, well, I had a problem to solve and I solved it.
Another cool tip, if you want to do pay-per-click ads on Google, only run your ad from 7 till 10 and answer your phone and put in your ad that we're open now for calls. You'll have more business and you can know what to do with.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because people generally look, after they get home, and Monday's the best time. No question about it. My Monday and Tuesday traffic, so they've gone through the weekend and they haven't sold their house and they get frustrated. So if you only want to do pay-per-click ads on Monday and Tuesday, those are the most motivated sellers. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay.
So you want to have H1 tag. You want to have a title tag. Title tag is what's up on the blue bar at the top, if you don't know.
Yeah.
And most people make the mistake of putting their company name there versus whatever you're trying to key on. So think of it as real estate. It's prime real estate. You want your keywords there. Sell Orlando home fast. Okay? Because you can always rank for your company name easily. Nobody else is trying to rank for that name. So don't use your space to promote your company name. It doesn't do you any good.
Yeah.
The other thing that's recently changed with Google is they're giving preferential treatment for a few things that they didn't in the past. It's good to have at least 2,000 words on each page. So many people just have real small things, but 2,000 words is what's generally considered the minimum you should have now to have the optimal chance of getting ranked in Google well.
Okay.
And Google loves video. They own YouTube. So I can't tell you how many times people call me and I hear my voice in the background. It's really weird.
Yeah.
I paid a guy $30. I got a tie on, and I made a really, really simple video explaining the process. I literally hear my people calling me, and I hear my voice in the background because they watched my video to hear what it's about.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but is this real? People will call me, do you really buy houses? Because it's not believable to somebody who doesn't do it all the time.
Right.
So you have to create trust.
Right.
And I think the video on the site lets them know it's a real person. So I hate these videos that are not you. I want it to be you so they know when they call, and if you answer the phone, there's an instant, they already feel like they know you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm really big on the video, and I think it just helps give you credibility.
Yeah. Along those lines, we're talking about becoming an expert in your market, and I know you've got some great tips on that. And I think along those same lines of what you just said, it's people like to do business with people, not a voice that somebody hired on Fiverr to sound like somebody else or whatever.
Right.
But why don't you share some of your advice, because we really haven't talked about this in the past, and I think it's important for people to I don't think enough real estate investors focus on their image and how to improve the image of the industry, which is tarnished in many ways. So with that said, one, it's easier to stand out if you're a professional and you focus on building your reputation, and two, I just think it helps the whole industry. But go ahead and share your thoughts on how to position yourself as an expert.
I think it's really, really important. I am not the biggest wholesaler in Orlando by any stretch of the imagination, not even close. But for most of those people in the RIA, especially any of the newbies, they probably think I am. Because I go and talk to my local RIA and I give classes on wholesaling. In my particular case, I chose to become an expert on wholesaling. There's a guy in my RIA club that specializes on sinkhole homes, something we have unique here in Florida that many places don't. It's hard to fix them, it's hard to sell them, and he has buyers who will buy them and not fix them and just rent them out. So you can get them for 10 cents on the dollar, he's selling them for 20 cents on the dollar, and they just rent them. They don't even get insurance. So he gets probably 4 deals a year off just becoming the expert on sinkholes. In my particular case, I get investors, in many, many cases it's newbies, but not always, where other investors don't know what to do, and because I put myself out there as the expert and that I'll help you on wholesaling, they'll call me and we'll work the deal together.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll just assign it to me, and sometimes we'll just co-wholesale it. But I get an enormous amount of business. Probably 80% of my business is from other investors at our RIA, either buying or selling.
Wow.
It's both.
Yeah.
80% of my business, because I go to all the meetings, I get up and speak, I tell people what I want, and I tell what I can offer them. And one cool thing that I do that I've never heard anybody else say it, but that doesn't mean nobody's not doing it. I get up and announce at my local meeting that I'll send your lead to my list for $29. So I have a pretty big list, and they know that. So $29 seems great for them not to have to go out and build a buyer's list, build one that's 15 years old. And it's a lead source because they call me and I say, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
They call me before they, try to flip it themselves. Or if they have only 10 people on their email list and, I know I can sell it quickly, it's just a really good source.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So becoming an expert, I think I told you, I have a friend that's an expert in fire damage houses. The other expert things you can become in your market, in my opinion, you can become the REO specialist. You can become the short sale expert. So that's something that I don't like to do, short sale. So if I get a short sale, I send the lead to somebody else.
Yeah.
It can take 14 months, and it's just not my personality.
Yeah.
So become an expert in short sales, become an expert in probate, become an expert in somebody that people can go to in your local market, and you will get deals. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah.
It's paid off tremendously for me.
Yeah, that's great. And a big part of what you're saying, kind of the underlying advice you're giving is to try to give back to people. I think there's so many people in this industry that haven't gotten out of the gate, or they're really interested, and I think if you can help them accomplish what it is they're trying to accomplish, then I believe in karma. I know it's alive and well, and that stuff comes back around. I mean, there's people that have helped me in different periods of my life, and I'll never forget it, and they know that, hey, if they need anything from me, I'll be there for them, just because of something that they did 10, 20 years ago. Who knows? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's great. In terms of, and I know you really talked a lot about RIAs, being active in your RIA, which we're huge proponents of RIA clubs here, big fans of RIA clubs all across the country. Any other ways to kind of position yourself, I guess, publicly outside of a RIA? Any advice or thoughts on that?
One thing that I did that was very, very successful, I called every reporter, the local TV reporter, and I offered stories. And I had a TV reporter do a story about We Buy Houses signs, how they were ugly, and she wanted me to comment on it.
Yeah.
And she used my sign, and she thought it was a negative.
Yeah.
But they put my ibuyhomes.com sign, and they ran it for 3 days. And it was on their website.
Yeah.
And so I call reporters. If I see a newspaper article, I'll call them and say, look, I'm a real estate investor. If you ever need a quote, you can call me up till 10 o'clock at night. And that's what's important to them.
Yeah.
To be able to get in touch with you really, really quickly.
Yeah.
There's a really cool site, Help a Reporter Out.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that?
I don't know. That sounds somewhat familiar. I don't think I've been there. I may have seen it before, but yeah.
Well, they'll send twice a day email messages on all type of issues where reporters are looking to interview experts. And I got in Personal Investor Magazine because they did a request for a wholesaler.
Yeah.
It was really cool, and I got a whole page in Personal Investor Magazine, not a whole page, but half a page, and they talked about my company, talked about me, all because I gave myself up as an expert.
Yeah.
But I like to do things nobody else is doing.
Yeah. And
there's not anybody else in your market calling TV reporters or newspaper reporters and saying, if you need a comment, I'd love to comment.
Yeah, that's
they always, at least in all the papers I've seen in Florida, the that they go to when they want to talk about real estate is the head of the local board of realtors. And that's because they don't know people like us that are professional. You know, I can wear a tie and get dressed up to go on camera. But if you call them and tell them, you're going to get interviewed. There's just no question about it.
Yeah.
Think about having a link on your newspaper site, how much that would help your website.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If you had that link from that site.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Todd, unfortunately, we're about out of time. We could probably carry on with this for a while. Any kind of last words of wisdom on, positioning yourself as an expert in your market? Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.